Hello and welcome to the channel. Thanks for stopping by. Great to have you here. We're looking at another Pagani design. This is the PD1761. It's a obvious homage to the TISSOT PRX. Now this is the Chrono version, which is, as I say, the PD1761. They also do a non-Chrono version as well, which is the PD1753. I'll put links to both of these and the best prices I can find on AliExpress in the links in the description below. So check those out. Now I got this for around £65, well, $70, something like that. Oh, I love it. I've got to be honest, I think this watch is great. The style of it, the build on it, I'm really pleased with it. Now this, as I say, is the Chrono version, and this is the white dialed, or Panda version I suppose. We've also got a blue dialed version, and also the reverse of this, a black dialed version. I think the same colours in the standard sort of PRX homage, but as I say, take a look at the link to check those out. Specs on this are great, and I'm really chuffed. It's a really good design. I know it's a homage, but I think you'd be pleased. If you went and bought this watch, you'd be really pleased with what you got. So let's take a look at what we get. So if you're spending $70 of your hard-earned money, what do you get for it? Well, you get a really good spec of watch, but let's look at the dimensions. So case diameter is 40mm. Strap width, well, it's 27mm just at this point. However, lug to lug is 12mm, just like the actual PRX, but I don't really think you're going to change the strap out on this. But that lug to lug just there, obviously, is an unusual style of bracelet because of the way it's built, but that's 12mm. Now, lug to lug, I did two lug to lugs on here. So lug to lug, as we would think it as standard up to that point, is 45.1mm. But because it has this extra link just here, as you can see, which isn't articulated where it meets the body, if you go across from there to there, that actually is 51.6. Now, that works for me with an 8-inch wrist because it pushes it out a bit further. But if you've got a smaller wrist, that may make it hang over. So just bear that in mind. Thickness is 11.3mm. It's not a thick watch. And then weight, it's an all stainless steel build, so we're a little bit weighty at 145 grams, but there are much heavier watches out there. And it sort of adds to the quality of this watch. That extra weight really does make it feel good on your wrist. So the build of the watch is 316L stainless steel. We've got this lovely brushed effect on the main body. Now I've said this before on other videos, I always think that the brushing that you get in any watch from Ali is always a little coarser than it would be on the real watch that it's probably paying homage to, and I think that's the case here. It's just that little bit coarser, there's a finer finish on the actual PRX range, I think. Now that body, you've got this chamfered edge just here which is polished. Now that's also reflected in the bezel here, so we've got a polished upper surface coming up, and then we've got brushed on the top of that, and it really makes that dial stand out, sort of adds a picture frame to it. Around the side we've got some more, it's more of a matte finish than a full brushing. It's probably a finer finish, but it adds to that watch because we've got this edge again that is polished, that just makes it just stand out, really nice, and that rolls onto the back of the watch, which is actually more just of a matte finish rather than any sort of brushing. Crystal, sapphire, it's a really nice piece of crystal. Don't know if there's any IR coating on there, possibly. Might be picking some up just on there. Then on the side round here we've got the crown, which is signed with the Pagani shield. And then we've got the two chrono pushers just here, which are flat. There's a little bit of spring into those. It's a little bit of play, but they do work. So if I start this, you'll notice that the larger needle hand at the 12 will start working. Did I push that then? No, I didn't. I had to give it a bit more of a good push, and there you go, you can see it moving. And if we stop it again, give it a good push, reset it, and it just snaps back. And all that brushing just follows on to the bracelet, which we'll come on to in a little bit. So on this white dialed version, we've got this really lovely Panda effect. Now the white isn't a shockingly bright white, it's a much softer white. I don't know if that comes across on the camera, but I think that adds to it. It's a very matte finish. Now, on an actual PRX, the brushing from the body and the top of the bezel actually follows on to the dial, but you don't see that on here. It is just a matte, flat white. Sets off those subdials lovely. Now, those subdials on the marketing do look like they've got a circular pattern on them, but I don't think that's actually on there. I think these are pretty flat. Now, at the 3 o'clock, we've got the 12/24-hour subdial. Down here is the ticking seconds at the 6, and then at the 9, it's the 60 minutes for the chrono. I did show you the chrono just, but we'll just pop it off again. As I say, give it a good press, and it sets that large needle hand ticking. The dial itself, we've got this black outer track with white minute markers. Then onto the white dial, we've got the elongated silver edged indices. They're filled with loom. Pagani Design above the pinion, and Japan movement down the bottom. It's a VK63 movement in this watch, I believe. Now, the bezel here is polished on the sides, and then that matte finish brushed on top of the bezel. And as I said before, it really does sort of add a picture frame to that dial. It looks really good. Hands, silver sword style hands filled with loom. Now, on an actual PRX, they're a much stubbier finish to the hands. They're not so sword style. They're a much more cut off set of hands, which is a little difference. Now, let me just stop that lead needle hand. Oh, yeah, give it a good push and just reset it, and it'll just snap back. Now, loom wise, actually this did all right. I wasn't sure it was going to. It doesn't seem to be a lot of loom on there. I'll put a picture up just in the corner of what it looks like when it's lit up, and it did pass my 3 AM test. Not with flying colours, but 3 o'clock in the morning you could still tell the time. The indices had faded quite a bit, but the hands were still reasonably bright, so I was really pleased with that. Case back wise, quite simple and straightforward. Obviously it's a quartz, so there's no display case back on this. So it's matte, Pagani Design etched onto the back with PD1761, and then round the side, stainless steel, water resistant 100 meters. It's a screw-on case back. And it is quite a deep case back. If I put it just on there, it does look quite deep. It sits really nicely on the wrist though, and the back of the watch, as I pointed out before, is just that matte effect. So quite simple, quite straightforward. It really just work with the rest of the watch. Bracelet wise, so we start off, as I say, at the 27mm at the body of the watch. Now the bracelet is the single link, sort of Y-shaped bracelet links, all brushed to match the body of the watch. Now there is some angles on these. Now I've got a feeling on the PRX these might be actually polished just like it is on the body here, but they're not on this one. The matte bracelet does suit really well. Now there are some sharp edges on here because it's an angular bracelet. Now those edges are not going to cut you at all, but you can feel that they come to a point. There's no burrs on it or anything like that, but some people might find that annoying. Now I've worn this plenty and I've had no issues with hair nipping or anything like that. Again, I'm just going to point out the way that this bracelet comes off the watch with that fixed first link from the lug there will sit proud on some people's wrists. As you can see, if your wrist is quite slender, it's going to hang off over that, so just bear that in mind. That actually helps me with a larger wrist because it just pushes that bracelet a little bit further out. Bracelet comes down, slims right down to a butterfly clasp even. Pagani Design on it, simple, straightforward. Now obviously there's no micro adjust on this because it's a butterfly clasp. Now out the box, and I'll show you in a second on my wrist, it actually fits fine. It's a little loose, so I could pop a link out if I wanted to, but I've got a feeling that would go too tight then. So I'm going to leave it as it is. It's a nice, clippy little butterfly clasp. I have had issues with those before, as I've pointed out, but it fits with the style of the watch and it looks $1 million. So here it is on my 8-inch wrist. And just look at that, all that light bouncing off that bracelet looks fantastic. Now it is slightly loose on my wrist, but it's straight out of the box with no micro adjust. I'm happy with the fit on my 8-inch wrist. A smaller wrist you're going to need to take a link out, no doubt. Now I'm read before on the actual PRX itself, the bracelet is quite short and people with bigger wrists might struggle. So don't know how true that is, but I've seen that on a couple of reviews. Now, I think this watch is great. There's not an awful lot to not like about this watch for the price. You're getting that sapphire crystal. You're getting a really good build. It looks $1 million. The only niggles I'd really have is there is no micro adjust, which is fine for some people, but you just could stop you getting that perfect fit. And some might not like the sharper edges on the bracelet. That might become annoying for some people. As I say, there's nothing on there that's going to cut you or do anything like that. But some people might find that a little bit of a niggle. I've not had an issue with it. I think this watch is brilliant. Check out the other colours. I'll put the links in the description below. Now, if this isn't your style of watch and you want something really different, you might want this, the Small 8008. I did a review of this watch. Great price, good watch. I'll put that up in the corner. Thanks to everybody that has subscribed and liked and commented, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks.